key points and detailed explanation. Transitioning away from fossil fuels. COP28's GST revealed the critical need for countries, especially developed ones, to transition from fossil fuel reliance to renewable energy sources. The report highlights the necessity of a just, orderly, and equitable transition away from fossil fuels, a threefold increase in global energy capacity by 2030, doubling energy efficiency improvements, eliminating inefficient fossil fuel subsidies that neither alleviate energy poverty nor facilitate fair transitions. Achieving this energy transition is essential because 90% of global emissions come from fossil fuel consumption. Despite the rise in renewable energy, fossil fuel use remains high, which, without drastic changes, will prevent the global community from limiting warming to safe levels. Fossil fuel production gap. The Production Gap Report 2023 reveals that governments are planning to produce 110% more fossil 2030 than what is consistent with keeping temperature rise below 2 degrees Celsius. The report projects that by 2050, fossil fuel production will be 350% above the levels needed to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. This alarming production gap requires urgent attention from world leaders and stronger commitments at COP29. NDCs and COP Troika's role. At COP29, countries will be expected to present enhanced NDCs that align with the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. The COP Troika, the previous, current, and next COP presidencies, must set the example by creating a transparent, credible system for monitoring NDC commitments. These third-cycle NDCs, NDCs 3.0, must incorporate strategies for mitigation, adaptation, and addressing loss and damage from climate impacts. The COP Troika's ability to maintain trust in the multilateral process will be key to successfully implementing these ambitious goals. Financial and resource challenges. The success of these efforts hinges on robust financial and investment frameworks to support energy transitions. Developed countries, in particular, are expected to lead this change by providing financial assistance and technology to developing nations. The commitment to reducing emissions must be matched by investments in renewable energy, technology, and infrastructure that support a low-carbon future. Global challenges: water, food, and inequality. Beyond energy, the article discusses broader environmental and social challenges, including food insecurity. By 2050, 60% of Pakistan's population could face food insecurity, with current rates of child stunting 40% and wasting 17.7%, indicating deep vulnerability. Water scarcity. Global water demand is projected to rise by 20 to 25% by 2050, while Pakistan's water availability has fallen drastically from 5,000 milliliters to 906 millicours per capita. Glacial melt and sea level rise. Pakistan, reliant on glacial melt from the Himalaya Karakoram Hindu Kush region, faces rising sea levels and acute water scarcity. Gender disparity. Pakistan ranks 145th out of 146 countries in the Gender Parity Index, underscoring the deep inequality that affects human development and climate resilience. Global governance and the political paradox. The UN General Assembly's Summit of the Future laid out an ambitious pact for the future, with 56 actions aimed at addressing global challenges like peace, security, climate change, and gender equality. However, there is concern that these goals lack concrete mechanisms for implementation. The article stresses that the real test for global leaders will be translating these commitments into action, moving from conflict to cooperation, C2C, and embracing a shared responsibility for a sustainable, just future. Crux. The upcoming COP29 in Baku is a crucial moment for the global community to address climate change. Governments must enhance their nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and work towards reducing fossil fuel dependence, transitioning to renewable energy, and building resilient systems to protect both people and the planet. COP29 will be judged by how well it sets actionable targets and secures high-level political and financial commitments to achieve net zero emissions and prevent catastrophic climate impacts. The stakes are high, and the window for meaningful action is closing fast. Key events. The return of 2 opposition lawmakers. The article opens with the image of 2 missing opposition lawmakers from Balochistan, one in a wheelchair and the other, a female member wrapped in a shawl, being escorted to the Senate session. Their appearance came after they had been reported missing for some time, and they were not allowed to speak to journalists. Their votes were crucial in helping the government secure the majority needed to pass the 26th Amendment in the Senate. The National Assembly Midnight Session. After the Senate vote, the National Assembly convened at midnight, where several opposition legislators, who had also been allegedly missing for several days, appeared on the Treasury benches. These defectors were critical to passing the amendment in the lower house as well. The ruling coalition's ability to gather this majority through questionable means was referred to as a brute majority, a term previously used by PPP chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Impact on the Constitution and judicial independence. The article argues that the 26th Amendment fundamentally dismantles the trichotomy of power outlined in the Constitution, which ensures a balance between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Members of the ruling parties hailed the amendment as a victory for democracy and parliamentary supremacy, but the author asserts that they are merely pawns in a larger, more insidious political game. This victory is described as Pyrrhic, meaning that the short-term success will ultimately come at a high cost. The amendment introduces a constitutional bench to be nominated by a judicial commission packed with government nominees, raising concerns about the erosion of judicial independence. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's role. The article critiques Bilawal Bhutto Zardari for defending the amendment by linking it to Quaid-e-Azam's vision and the Charter of Democracy, CODE, which his party signed with PMLN in 2006. The author calls Bilawal's statements naive and misleading, arguing that the amendment undermines the very democratic principles that the CODE sought to protect. Bilawal's defense of the amendment is seen as a betrayal of his party's commitment to the rule of law and democratic norms, further questioning the PPP's dedication to maintaining judicial independence. Historical context and political hypocrisy. The article reminds readers of past instances when both PPP and PMLN supported controversial judicial actions that served their political interests. For example, in 2012, Nawaz Sharif and the PMLN backed the sacking of Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani by Chief Justice Iftikhar Chaudhry. Similarly, PPP leaders, including Bilawal, praised the Supreme Court's decision to convict Nawaz Sharif in 2017. These examples highlight the political opportunism of both parties, which are now collaborating to pass the 26th Amendment despite their past roles in undermining judicial independence. The role of the security establishment. The article points out that the plan to pass the amendment gained momentum after 6 judges of the Islamabad High Court raised concerns about the interference of intelligence agencies in judicial matters. Additionally, the Supreme Court's majority judgment on the redistribution of reserved seats for women and minorities further fueled the government's desire to limit the judiciary's powers. Modifications to the 26th Amendment. After failing to pass the amendment in an earlier attempt, the government revised the draft to gain the support of JUIF's Maulana Fazlur Rehman. His consent came after weeks of negotiations, and a watered-down version of the amendment was presented, making it easier for the ruling coalition to secure the necessary votes. However, despite some changes, the core provisions of the amendment, which curtailed judicial independence, remained intact. Key provisions of the 26th Amendment. The amendment removes the Supreme Court's sua motu powers, the court's ability to take up cases on its own. It limits the Chief Justice's term to 3 years and gives the Prime Minister the power to appoint the next Chief Justice from among the 3 most senior judges. A judicial commission will evaluate the performance of High Court judges, treating them like government servants. This clause is seen as an attempt to pressure judges into conforming to the government's agenda. Coercion and intimidation. The article highlights the coercive tactics used to ensure the amendment's passage. Opposition members were allegedly forced to switch sides, and many lawmakers were kept in captivity over the weekend, only reappearing in time to vote for the amendment. The author condemns the lack of debate on such a significant constitutional change, noting that many legislators were not even shown the draft of the amendment before being required to vote on it. Opposition from the legal community. Despite the government's success in passing the amendment, the article suggests that the fight is not over. Several bar associations have rejected the amendment, questioning the legitimacy of a parliament that passed such far reaching changes under dubious circumstances. The future of judicial independence now depends on how the new Chief Justice and other judges respond to these restrictions on their powers. Crux. The article paints a bleak picture of Pakistan's parliamentary and judicial future, where the executive seeks to dominate the judiciary with the perceived backing of the security establishment. The 26th Amendment is portrayed as a tool for eroding judicial independence and consolidating power in the hands of the ruling coalition. The lack of debate, the alleged coercion of lawmakers, and the amendment's far-reaching implications make it a momentous, yet deeply troubling, development in Pakistan's political history. Key points. Imran Khan's disqualification. Imran Khan's exclusion from the list of candidates for Oxford's chancellorship was predictable due to the university's exclusion criteria, which prohibit serving members or candidates for elected legislatures from being considered. This means Imran would have had to abandon his domestic political ambitions to qualify. The author highlights the absurdity of the situation, emphasizing how pursuing legal action to challenge the rejection would only make things worse. Western media's views. Peter Oborne, a contrarian British journalist, praised Imran's values, claiming they reflect the freedom and justice he learned at Oxford's Keble College decades ago. Oborne contrasts Imran's stance on Gaza with the silence of other chancellorship candidates like William Hague and Peter Mandelson. However, the author challenges this romanticized portrayal of Imran, pointing out that many Pakistani feminists and educationists would disagree with such views, especially regarding education reform and women's rights. Oborne's comments are compared to those of Ainur Bashirova, who also misinterprets Imran's positions, reflecting a lack of understanding of his actual policies and controversies in Pakistan. Criticism from Western commentators. Several commentators in the West have condemned Imran's candidacy. Catherine Bennett of The Observer described it as an insult to Oxford's female students, while Kapil Komareddy, writing for the Daily Telegraph, questioned whether Oxford was ready to elect a candidate who had celebrated the Taliban's return to power. These critics argue that Imran's track record, including his endorsement of the Taliban, makes him an inappropriate candidate for such a prestigious position. Misplaced endorsement by some Western leftists. The article highlights how segments of the Western left continue to see Imran Khan as a martyr in the anti-imperialist cause. This perception ignores his obscurantist ideology and his complicity in Pakistan's political dynamics. His persecution and prosecutions can be condemned, but that does not justify endorsing his political ideology. Candidacy of South Asians. Imran's failed attempt attracted attention from various candidates from South Asia, many of whom have little connection to the university or understanding of the largely ceremonial role of chancellor. Several candidates are criticized for their inadequate qualifications. For instance, Sidra Aftab, a lawyer from Lahore, cites her ability to meet deadlines, and Kashif Bilal pledges to enhance literacy rates globally. Other nominees have equally dubious credentials, such as Aftab Ahmadjad Sheikh and Kashmela Rauf. Former British politicians. As in the past, former British politicians are seen as the frontrunners for the chancellorship. William Hague, Dominic Grieve, and Peter Mandelson are among the prominent figures in the race. The author notes that the precedence of ex-politicians winning the post suggests that one of them will likely succeed Chris Patten. The election process. For the first time, the election is being opened up to the Oxford Convocation, which includes all alumni rather than being limited to the congregation, the university's staff. This change in procedure broadens participation, but also highlights Oxford's medieval origins as a theological seminary, reflected in its Latin motto, Dominus Illuminatio Mea, the Lord is my light. Lack of importance of the role. The author concludes by downplaying the significance of the chancellorship, remarking that it doesn't particularly matter who wins this contest. The position is ceremonial and unremunerated, so its outcome is less consequential than the public attention it has garnered, especially due to the controversies surrounding candidates like Imran Khan. Crux. The article paints Imran Khan's bid for the Oxford chancellorship as misguided and reflective of his broader political miscalculations. It critiques those in the West who romanticize his anti imperialist credentials, pointing out his problematic political views and controversial positions on issues like women's rights and the Taliban. While the chancellorship race includes a diverse array of candidates, former British politicians are likely to maintain their traditional dominance in such elections. Key points: Ocean versus space. While space exploration, particularly missions to Mars, has captured the public imagination as the next frontier, oceanographers argue that the depths of the ocean remain a more mysterious and significant unexplored frontier. Only 20% of the ocean has been mapped, making it largely unknown compared to space. Discovery of the Lost City. A recent expedition discovered an undersea formation near the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This marine ecosystem, referred to as a lost city, features towering structures, walls, and spires over 60 meters tall that spew hydrogen or methane gases. These gases support trillions of microbes living in the city. The city is over 120,000 years old, but compared to the Earth's 4 billion year history, it's a small fraction of time. Life without oxygen. Scientists are fascinated by this undersea ecosystem because it demonstrates how organisms can survive in the absence of oxygen. Studying such life forms could provide clues about the possibility of life in space, where oxygen and other life-sustaining resources are scarce. The ability of organisms to thrive in these harsh conditions is especially intriguing to scientists interested in understanding how life might have originated on Earth and how it could exist on other planets. Exploration and scientific discoveries. An expedition named the Building Blocks of Life drilled deep into the seabed, 2,250 kilometers from Bermuda, retrieving rare rocky material for study. This material might help scientists understand how life began and how microbes can survive in extreme conditions. The discovery emphasizes the need for international cooperation in scientific exploration, as the expedition involved 20 countries. This cooperation model could be applied to other scientific endeavors. Impact on human understanding. The findings from such expeditions can transform our understanding of life on Earth and the universe. Just as we once thought life could not exist in the ocean's depths, we might one day discover that life exists in unexpected forms on other planets. The idea that life can exist for billions of years in ways unfamiliar to humans opens up new possibilities for extraterrestrial life. The seeming emptiness of other planets might just be life in an extended gestation period, similar to the slow development of microbial life on Earth. Crux. The article suggests that while space exploration continues to fascinate, the real unexplored frontier may lie beneath the ocean. Discoveries like the Lost City and its microbial life are not only remarkable, but could offer insights into the potential for life on other planets. The ocean's mysteries, largely uncharted, challenge our understanding of life's adaptability and open doors to new scientific frontiers. Key points. Current urban landscape. Pakistan's urban population is 93.8 million, projected to rise to 100 million by 2030. This would make up about 41% of the country's total population. However, concerns exist that this count might be underestimated due to unreliable data. The ADB describes Pakistan's urban development as a messy urbanization model, with cities suffering from housing shortages, poor water, sanitation, and solid waste management services, and inadequate planning. Economic and governance challenges. Cities face funding shortages due to an uncertain economic environment, making it difficult to improve services. Additionally, urban governance is complicated by partial devolution, where conflicting governance structures lead to inefficiency. Major cities like Karachi suffer from class divides and political instability, while Lahore is dealing with uncontrolled urban sprawl. Islamabad is struggling with housing demand, and Peshawar is seeing increased migration after FATA's merger with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, though its infrastructure is reportedly improving. Water and waste management. Access to water and sanitation has improved, but only incrementally, while solid waste management remains inefficient. These services are crucial for improving the quality of life in cities, yet they have not seen significant advancements. Need for new urban models. The ADB stresses the need for a new urbanization model that includes empowered local governments to facilitate sustainable urban planning. Local governments, LGs, are critical for addressing urban issues, but political parties have consistently resisted implementing functional LGs, fearing they might undermine political patronage systems. Recommendations. To prevent further urban deterioration, the state should adopt the recommendations from the ADB and experts, focusing on cleaner, greener, sustainable cities with equitable opportunities and transparent governance. Urban slums should be replaced with affordable housing for the working class. Crux. Without proper urban planning and empowered local governments, Pakistan's cities will continue to struggle with congestion, pollution, and poor infrastructure. A shift towards a more sustainable and inclusive urban model is essential to improving the quality of life for millions of people. Key points. Targeting mobile and migrant populations. Many cases are linked to populations that move across regions, making it difficult to ensure consistent vaccination coverage. The plan aims to address this by improving vaccination efforts in mobile and migrant communities, particularly in areas with high instability like Balochistan and KP. Enhancing coordination with Afghanistan. Given Pakistan's shared border with Afghanistan, coordination between the two countries is critical to stopping cross-border transmission of the virus. Improved communication and cooperation with Afghan health authorities will help ensure both countries are on the same page in terms of vaccination and surveillance efforts. Improving management and oversight. To close the immunity gaps that persist in high-risk areas, the plan emphasizes better management and stricter oversight of vaccination campaigns. Ensuring that vaccines reach every child, especially in vulnerable regions, will be crucial to preventing new outbreaks. Broader health integration. The NEAP also focuses on integrating routine immunization with other health services, including water, sanitation, and hygiene (WASH) initiatives. Poor sanitation is a major factor in polio transmission, with the virus frequently found in environmental samples across the country. Nutrition and healthcare services. By strengthening basic health infrastructure and tackling the drivers of disease, the government aims to build a healthier, more resilient population. Combating misinformation and vaccine hesitancy. Misinformation continues to fuel vaccine hesitancy, particularly in regions like KP, where reluctance to vaccinate children remains a significant barrier. To tackle this issue, the government plans to increase media engagement to educate parents on the importance of polio vaccines, encourage parents to take an active role in safeguarding their children's health through proper vaccination, while promoting accurate information about vaccine safety and effectiveness. Addressing structural challenges. Several structural obstacles still hinder polio eradication efforts. Security concerns in vulnerable regions like Balochistan and KP have made it difficult for health workers to reach every child. Ensuring polio workers' safety is paramount. Routine immunization coverage, currently at 70%, needs improvement. While polio-specific campaigns are vital, the overall immunization system must be strengthened to ensure comprehensive protection against all preventable diseases. Crux. Pakistan's struggle to eradicate polio requires a multifaceted, sustained approach. The government's action plan addresses key challenges from closing immunity gaps to fighting misinformation and enhancing basic healthcare infrastructure. By addressing these root causes, Pakistan can work toward a polio-free future and safeguard the health of its children. Key points. Current account deficit shrinks. Pakistan's current account deficit reduced by 92%, down to $98 million in Q1 F24 from $124 billion in the same period last year. Remittances surge. A 39% increase in remittances, reaching $8.78 billion, helped counterbalance the deficit despite a 20% rise in the trade deficit to $1.2 billion. Temporary surplus. The current account posted a $148 million surplus in August-September. Potential risks. A reduction in economic uncertainty could lead to a faster increase in imports, worsening the deficit unless remittances continue to rise. Economic trade-offs. The reduction reflects the impact of import curbs and forex controls, but has caused reduced industrial output, job losses, and increased poverty. Need for reforms. Structural reforms are required to improve the business environment, boost investment, and set the country on a sustainable growth path. Crux: Pakistan's sharp reduction in the current account deficit, mainly due to a surge in remittances, offers temporary relief but underscores deeper structural issues. The reliance on import restrictions has hurt growth, leading to job losses and reduced industrial activity. The government must use this opportunity to introduce reforms for sustainable growth and long-term economic stability.